Me, I'm okay.
Yeah, they can hear you.
Well, that's good.
Okay, so we left off where you met Mom. How'd you know she was the one?
Can't think of anything myself.
You guys met at a wedding, right?
Yes.
Amy and Carl's
we had
wedding?
met before that, but I don't really remember those times very well. I was back in the Peacock. We met at, my roommate was Carl Johnson. He married Anna's cousin, Agnes, no, not Agnes, Amy. And at their wedding, we were both serving in the wedding, and kind of matched up. And we met there. Don't remember much about the afternoon that evening, though. We went to two friends of mine.
Hold on.
Looks like you're going again. So anyway, let's see. We stopped where
Y'all matched up at the wedding.
we met at the wedding reception dance. Not at the reception hall, but at the club later that evening after the reception at the church facility, which I'm sure was the KC Hall. Anyway, I showed up. I can't remember the name of those two dudes from Beaumont Groves, but I went over and picked them up that morning. Had to find shoes for one of them and a suit for another one. And shoot, you talk about the mess. Anyway, we all showed up in sandals. We got warned immediately when we got to the door that might not be the wisest footwear choice for the evening when we went in anyway. But Ann and I, we had a good talk that evening. We got together because we were the only two there that weren't drunk. Everybody else was just drinking and cutting up, having a good time. I mean, nothing against them. They were just doing their thing, but that wasn't my thing. Wasn't her thing. So we just talked for a long time. I don't know what we talked about. I have no idea. But, gosh, we probably talked from 10 till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
Just nursing cokes. And we danced a few times. I danced with some of her aunts. I got my toes all nasty. But every once in a while I'd step out the parking lot. But we had a good evening. I don't know, I didn't think about whether or not I was going to be with her long term until I got home that evening. I didn't get home till about 3. And Dad was up and he was mad at me for staying at the house and being out that late. I mean, I could do that at college, but I couldn't do that at home. And anyway, he come at me pretty hard. I told him, I said, well, I'm sorry to tell you, I know you don't like her, you don't think it's wise for me to even have anything to do with her, but I think I'm going to marry her anyway. I said, I really think I am. And I wasn't joking. I had no idea why. Well, ultimately I do know why, but it wasn't just over that night. That was just the beginning. And actually, it didn't give me a clue as to what I was getting into. No offense, Alan. But she did not go into her, neither one of us did. We went into our background. You can't really do that in a couple hours. Bar on top of that. But we did. We hit it off good. And
You got married 9.5 months later?
let's see, that would have been Carl's wedding. Would have been right after we came back from shooting dynamite and drilling in the spring of 72.
Yeah, I got married in May of 73.
Yeah.
What was the wedding like?
Whose?
Y'all's.
Ours? Oh. I had to get something to burn me up. But, it was okay. I mean, it's just typical Cajun wedding affair. Nothing complex about it. The only complexity was Dad was up there with the priest. They allowed that. And so he was able to say a few words.
Why was that a big deal?
Because Anna's Catholic and we're not. But anyway, they allowed that, and that worked out fine. I don't remember that much about the reception. It was kind of a blur. Same way for the wedding, for that matter, I guess.
Were there a lot of people there?
Yeah, quite a few. Quite a few. And his relatives show up for that kind of stuff big time. And of course, his dad's family were Ritters, so they were right there.
So what would you say, 50 people?
No, probably more than that. Probably closer to 100.
Yeah?
Yeah. Anna's got a big family, and a whole bunch of them showed up. And surprisingly, I think most of Dad's family were there. Wayne and them were. I don't know where they were living at the time, but they didn't do that sort of thing. But anyway, it was.
Did y'all go on a honeymoon?
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. First night was in the Leesville Hotel. And that was just because I didn't feel like driving all the way up to Pawpaw's camp.
Pawpaw who? George Kite?
Yeah, he gave us one of his trailers, or let us use one of his trailers for a week.
Where's that at?
Link Bend.
Oh, I didn't know that.
East side of the lake, up below the dam, about 5 miles. It's still called Kite's Landing. Anyway, we spent 3 or 4 nights up there after the night in the hotel in Leesville. The only memorial thing from that the wedding was Robert chasing us in the car. That was kind of crazy.
Why?
I don't know, just cutting up. But Anna and I got in her dad's truck to leave. We had left her car somewhere else. She wanted nobody touching her car.
The 63 Comet?
72 Comet.
72 Comet.
I mean, that thing was sacrosanct and then some. You didn't mess with that little car. And anyway, we had hid it somewhere else. Well, I left to go get it and leave with her. And Robert started following. So I started trying to shake him off. But her old man's pickup truck, and Robert chased him with the car. There wasn't no way I could shake him. And I couldn't. So I give up and I went back to the reception hall. And Bobby said, "Get in here." And we got in his Torino. And that was the last we saw of Robert. First thing he did was he went about 100 yards and turned up a dirt road behind a farmer's house. And when he got in that dust, he's out in front of it, and they're behind him, they can't see nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. There wasn't no following him. And he brought us right to the car, and we went on our way. But I heard Bruce and him got in a fight. I don't know if that's true.
Really? About what?
I have no idea. I think that's BS myself, but I don't put it past either one of them.
Yeah.
Because both nuts.
Bruce and Uncle Bob, or Bruce and Robert?
No, Bruce and Uncle Bob.
Oh. Yeah, who knows?
I don't really care.
So you were living in Ruston at that time, or you hadn't moved yet?
Let's see. What was the timing on all that? Okay. I was working offshore.
Uh-huh.
Another spring deal. I was on a boat. I come in on the boat a week early, just because I was tired of being on that boat. For one thing, it's been on it about 3 weeks. And took a crew boat in. I think Dad picked me up. That was asking a lot of him, but he did it. Picked me up down below New Orleans near Venice, in that area, Lafourche or something like that. Anyway, he picked me up and took me home. And I had a week or so there before Anna and I got married. I don't remember what I did during that period of time. The only thing I remember immediately up to the wedding was me and Franklin stopped at the Exxon station smoking cigarettes by the car waiting for things to get started.
So were you done with school, with college when you
No.
moved up?
No. I was a sophomore, I guess, at that point, late sophomore.
Where'd you guys live?
Ruston.
I know, but in a trailer, or
Yeah, a trailer, a 12 by 50 mobile home.
did you buy it new, or were you renting
No, I
it?
bought it used from Robert for $3,000. And had it moved up there, set up, washing machine, dryer, we bought all that new. And set it up with trailer parks. It was a nice little trailer park at the time. It's a dump now, but most go that way.
So you stayed there for 2 years while you finished college? or 3?
Closer to 3, I think. Because we got married in May of 73, and I finished school in March of 75. So what's that make it? Yeah, that's right at,
A couple years.
yeah. But anyway.
Y'all didn't have any kids there, right?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Anna had a miscarriage. And she worked at Walmart.
She was in the fabric department?
Yeah, well, wherever they put her, that's where she liked to be most of the time, but that wasn't where she was all the time. She worked back, I think that was store number 17 for Walmart. I mean, they had just gotten off the ground. Sam Walton walked through that store while she was there. But anyway, and I'd already been working service station. It wasn't but $1 an hour. I think at that point it had gone up to $2 an hour.
Which one was it?
Billy Jack's, Parnell's Gulf Station. Can't remember whether it turned into a Chevron before we left or not. I think it was still a Gulf when we left in 75. It was right there on Interstate 20 and 167. And there were 4 corners for that intersection. And we had one of sell 3,000 gallons of gas a day on average.
Wow.
I think the highest I ever saw it go was something like 45 or 4900. I mean, we were pumping gas. I mean, lots of gas. It wasn't nothing to have 8 cars out there at once.
Wow.
And we're pumping it all and cleaning windshields and airing tires and the whole 9 yards. And servicing cars and changing tires and washing cars and changing oil and alternators and everything under the sun. That was one of my 3 jobs. Let's see, the other one was cleaning the church. That was just a once-a-week thing. What was the other one? Oh, I used to run trailers for a guy across Interstate 20 from Dallas. Ride with him in a truck over there and then drive up a 3/4-ton truck with a bunch of frames for trailers. Or actually, some of them were trailers. They were already set up to drive those back in the middle of the night from Dallas. There's something else I did in there that I can't remember what it is. Another little job. Anyway, school was fun then, though. I was in my junior, senior year, and that was fun because you really got into some interesting things. I mean, I got through college. I could do a lot of different stuff. Not any of it well, but I knew how to do so much. And when I think of what I've forgotten, it just blows my mind that I let all that go. But it's like almost any career, medical, legal, whatever. If you don't focus on something, you don't get anywhere. If you can't, I guess you could if you stayed in academia, but I got to be productive. Nothing against you teachers, I did it too. And there is a productivity side to it. It's just marginal.
So, so Shell comes into the picture next. Now you interviewed for more than one place, right? How did you and Shell end up?
Okay, well, my senior year, in fact, let's see, I graduated in March, the end of the winter semester. And I interviewed.
Wait, March?
Yeah, in March.
How did this? Oh, because they were in a quarter system? Okay, gotcha.
Anyway, I interviewed on campus the summer prior to that. And I probably interviewed 25 or 30 different corporations.
Wow.
Demand was high for engineers at the time. This was late 74, early 75. And out of all the interviews I did on campus, I probably got the numbers wrong. I got them down at the house somewhere, but I think I did something like 9 or 11 trips to different places to interview on site for a position. And I started that traveling in the fall of 74. And how you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, doing good. Anyway, interviewed on campus. Jim Rosser was the guy from Shell that came up, and I interviewed with him. What impressed him was not my GPA, because my GPA was something like 2.8, less than 3, which meant you weren't going to do real well. But I showed him how I got that through, which was over about the last 6 months to a year prior to that, because I had sunk it down to about a 2, and all the increase was in the courses that mattered. That and my work experience, and work experience was a key thing, because if they didn't care for my work experience, I didn't want to work for them anyway. And I had some that just fit the Shell pipeline to a T. I mean, there was Texas Eastern was the next closest, another pipeline company on the gas side. But I went down to DuPont, a little outfit called Val Dattache, the starter chemical company, LaPorte, down in that south of Houston area. Let's see, went to Alice Chalmers, or not Alice Chalmers, GE in New Orleans. They had turbines. I got one job offer without even a trip. Aircraft manufacturer, Pratt & Whitney, sent me an offer based on the campus interview alone of $900 a month to come basically blow up engines and see what happened. And it sounded wonderful, but it was the lowest offer I got. And they were just throwing money out there and seeing if we survive, which is one way of doing it. But I interviewed Shell on Christmas Eve.
Really? Christmas Eve?
Christmas Eve. So the only time I had to get them in there. And it was time, and I don't know, it fit. So I flew into Houston from Shreveport. Let's see, how did that go? That was strange.
Here, I'm going to pause it 1 second right here.
Go ahead.
All right, so it was Christmas Eve. Pick up there.
Yeah, Christmas Eve, and I'm interviewing Shell.
You flew into
Ann and I have
Houston?
been married. Now, let's go back on Ann and I.
Okay.
Catch you up. We survived each other for those first few years, and it was real survival. Nothing against Ann and nothing against me. It's just we had a tough time. Maybe I ought to just stop right there for a moment. Because we did. It was not fun.
What kept you married?
She's Cajun and I'm stupid. I'm like the old puppy dog. I commit to something. I don't back off. And I guess, like I said, I tell people all the time, I said, I ride a motorcycle, I married a Cajun Catholic, and I'm a Baptist minister's son. Redneck. I said, I like a challenge. Take a risk, yeah, come with me. No, we did okay, but I swear it was tough. But we had we had a little routine down. We had a cat.
Is that Sammy?
Yeah. Oh, I tell you what, we had some cats. Yeah, Sammy used to he just tear stuff up. But we had a little black one. I think I'm trying to remember what Racer's the name that comes to mind. That's not it. It's got something to do with speed. I can't remember her name. We lost her though when she got in the neighbor's car. He left the window down overnight. And when she went wild in the back seat while he was on the way to work, he may roll the windows up and kept her in the car, but when he opened the door, she was gone. Something runner. Gosh, what was her name? She was a neat cat. But anyway, living in a little old trailer park with some good friends that were from, one of them was on the Louisiana Tech football team, Don Fulker. He wasn't one of the stars, but he was on the team. But anyway, it was good. Now I really enjoyed the learning. I mean, it was fun. I mean, we had classes with some really good professors with no more than 5 or 6 of us sitting there at a time. I mean, that class started that size. And I had a lot of classes like that where we all went home and worked on the same problem and all came up with different answers and tried to figure out whose was correct. There wasn't any texting or nothing like that. I mean, it was spilling Coke on a calculator and praying it didn't die, all that kind of good stuff, and running back and forth to the service station to pump gas in cars in the middle of the night. It was, we stayed busy. But anyway, I got the interview with Shell. Don't think they told me anything immediately. I can't remember for sure, but I do know I went away feeling pretty good about the interview. And, but they, it was strange because I was interviewing with Shell Pipe, which is a certain segment of the company I wouldn't be involved in, and I knew about other parts of the company I did not want to be involved with. And the names, every time I talked to them, they changed. Shell was always in there somewhere, but sometimes pipe, sometimes oil, sometimes, I didn't know what was going on. But anyway, they hired me, or
Who's
they made me an offer, Shell Pipeline, I think. Actually, yes and no. If I remember the story correctly, when I interviewed Shell Pipeline, and they remained Shell Pipeline until the end of the year. And then that portion of Shell Pipeline was absorbed into the engineering department called General Engineering in Shell Oil to do only work for Shell Pipeline. So I got hired verbally by Shell Pipe, but I went to work for Shell Oil. And that really didn't matter to me until I got to my first project. I finished the project before I figured out who I was working for.
Wow.
It only
Do you remember what your offer was?
What my offer was? $11.75 a month, which at the time was right. I kept track of inflation from the time that your mom and I got well, in '75 when I started working. I kept track of inflation and all kinds of other stuff for years and years and years, up through the time we were in Michigan. No, I wasn't in Michigan. We were in, no, it's back in Houston, mid-90s. $1 when we got married was equal to $4 in the mid-90s.
Wow.
That's how much inflation had bumped it up. Most of that over the last 8 years or so before that. But in any event, $11.75, so call it 10, call it 12 a year, bump it to 15, multiply by 4. So I'd have started out at about 45, nowadays maybe 60, which is about where they are now.
Yeah.
But anyway, I started with them March 10th. Graduated March 5th. We had the house in Houston set up.
How'd you buy the house?
Didn't already have it. It was the mobile home. We moved it down to Houston.
Oh, okay. This is
I
when you
owned
lived
that.
over in 290 in Jersey Village area.
Yeah, yeah. And paid Robert, I guess, to move. No, Shell paid Robert to move. And anyway, we moved there, and we had the one car. Well, and then I bought a car.
1976 Cutlass.
No.
What was
that
it?
was a long time before the Cutlass. This was 75.
Oh.
Your mother still had the little, practically brand new Comet. And God, we got into more fights over that goofy car. But anyway, I bought, it's kind of a celebration of finishing school. I bought a Vega, Chevrolet Vega station panel truck with a 350 and 3 deuces on it. And little bitty truck, panel in the back. You couldn't see through the windows. They were paneled over. And our Vega was meant for a 4-cylinder, and it had an 8, a big 8, and a lot of carburetor. It's the only car I never got on from the standstill as hard as I could, because I never found a place where the light post was spaced far enough apart. I mean, that car, you couldn't keep it on the road unless you were real careful. But you could driving that Houston traffic, and it'd be doing 60, and you'd see a spot over there, and you just, and you were there. I mean, it was just so cool. It went really quick. Anyway, he started blowing up air filters, oil filters, literally blowing up an oil filter like a balloon.
Oh my gosh.
The guy that built it had mounted the filter right up on the fender well. There wasn't any place to put it anywhere else. And it was fine when I bought it, but I went out one morning and I got oil all over the place on the floor, on the asphalt by the car. I popped the hood in there, that sucker was just
Why?
overpressure.
Oh, wow.
The oil pump was overpressure. I brought it back to the guy and he told me, he says, now you remember when I sold you this piece of junk, that the only reason I was getting rid of it is because I couldn't blow it up. You swore you'd never bring it back to me. And he said, and here you are. I said, just get it fixed enough so I can get rid of it.
Did you?
Yeah. It had flames painted down the side of it and whatever. I may have a picture of it somewhere.
I think I've seen one. Did you lose money on it?
I don't know. We had so much money back then, I didn't know what to do with it all. We bought a 19-inch color TV. I tell you what, we were big time. Color, because I wanted to be able to see the ball. I'd never seen the ball on TV before. My eyes weren't very good. But I swear, we bought that first. She got a sewing machine, and I got a color TV. That was our celebrating for me getting out of college. That and my grandmother bought me a new briefcase. And that thing lasted about 35, 40 years.
Wow. So then what happened? So now you're in Houston.
Okay,
You
so we're in Houston.
Bought a trailer. You're living
Yeah.
out in.
And we got some good
Jersey.
friends there in the trailer park. It was a nice little trailer park at the time. 290, they hadn't built the highway. They were working on the access roads. And that was carrying a lot of traffic. But anyway, Anna would have to take me to work or just stay home without a car. And a lot of times she stayed home without a car. I used to park on a little bridge so I wouldn't have to. Parking in downtown was atrocious. It was something like $2 or $3 a day. Back then.
Yeah. Sounds atrocious, Dad.
But I parked out there off of between Memorial and what's the other one? Allen, on a little bridge that spanned between the two, right there behind the Coliseum. And I'd park on that bridge and get there early enough to where I could park there. And then I'd walk through the Coliseum. Oh, everybody smelled when the zoo was in town. Walk back in there and come up over near where I was working. Then I started traveling, going back to Michigan. That was the first major project I got. That was fun. Freaked me out. I'd never been up north before. So in the middle of the winter, I say middle, it was late, let's see, that would have been spring, but it was probably April or something. There was still a lot of snow over there. A lot of snow. We were planning getting things kicked off with a contractor to go to work, putting in pipe for another 120 or 150 miles or so down the peninsula. But that was fun. We were going to work scared to death one morning. Come out of the hotel, Holiday Inn along the bay. Didn't have hotels and stuff like when we lived there. There were a few hotels and they were nice, but they wasn't crazy like when we were there or after we left. But I'm in the middle of nowhere. I know I'm on the right road. I can read the signs. But it's about a 10, 15 mile hitch across this flat area between two towns in the hills. And I see this god-awful looking thing coming at me in the pitch dark. Lights all over the place, and I think that was about the time that Encounters of the Third Kind came out. Man, this thing is coming at me, and it's moving, and it's got a halo, and I am friggin' freaked.
What was it?
I pulled over on the side of the road, and the snowplow went by doing about 50 miles an hour, blowing snow up in the air, about a 30-foot arc. Scared the daylights out of me. I'm glad nobody's right behind me because that comes to a halt. But I I got on down to the warehouse, learned how to fold a map. That was probably the first practical thing I learned in Shell. One of the inspectors on the job site said, now this is, you work with these rolled up drawings and all that stuff. He said, that's fine, but we don't have to, can't mess with that out here. This is the way we do it. And he showed me, and nobody ever folded maps any different than that company, I guarantee you. I mean, there was a way to get it done, and for different sizes, you did it different ways. That was fun. I did a lot of flying at first. I can't believe your mother picked me up that first time. That just blew my mind, because I hadn't been anywhere. Flew to Michigan on a Monday and left early on Friday morning. Mm-hmm. The way the flights ran, you come out of Traverse either to Chicago or Detroit. One of the two. I mean, just whatever you could work out. Well, anyway, the flight I had worked out, I got back to Houston at 10:30 in the morning, and which was nice. Maybe that's the Friday off. Well, anyway, when Anna and I had gone out to I took a taxi to get out to the airport. I told her, I said, now here's what you want to do. You're on 290. You follow 290 all the way to 610 loop. You get to the 610 loop. It's real obvious. You go east. You go across the north side of Houston on 610 loop. When you get to 45, very big freeway. Oh, yes, right says airport on it too. Just take that and go north. Okay? When it gets to the airport exit, big exit, take it. Come to the airport, come get me, terminal, such and such, whatever. This will never go to work. I got to the airport at 10:30. I got downstairs to the baggage about 10:45 or so. And I'm standing there no more than 5 or 10 minutes, and I heard her holler. Of course, then you could go all the way in the baggage and then where you wanted to. She was there. And I'm all freaked. I said, this is cool. We didn't have cell phone or anything. I said, you did good. And we got to talking and so forth. I said, what time did you leave the house? It's about 11 o'clock. What time did you leave the house? She said, 8:30. I said, really? Yeah, I left at 8:30. I knew I'd need some extra time so I could get here on time. And it worked out really good. I'm here. I said, really? So we're waiting on the bags, and I said, well, how did you come, Shirley? She said, well, she said, I did what you told me. I came down 290, and I got to the loop, and I went 610. But I was in the wrong lane when I got to 45, and I couldn't get off. She said, but I knew it was a loop, so I just kept driving until I came back. And she did. She drove the entire loop till she came back to 45 and she was in, and I'm sitting over there saying, wow, this is neat. And then I had my bag by then, and we're walking out the door going toward the cars or whatever. And I said, now where's the car? She says, I don't have any idea. And I can't believe it. We found it, Of course, the airport's much larger now than it was then, but to find it as quickly as we did was just a miracle in her hand. But she left at 8:30. She did the same thing about 8 or 10 years ago, coming back from El Paso. That one, she used Beltway for that, though. Come in off the 10, and I had printed her directions off the computer, and it said, come off at 10 and take Beltway 8. And she did.
Wrong way.
And she went south on Beltway 8. And it was way down Beltway 8 before she turned to the next page and says, north. So it was my fault.
Yeah.
But she drove the thing clear all the way back to Humboldt. And she probably made better time than if she'd have turned around. I don't know. Your mama gets it done. It just takes a while.
So you're in Shell, you're at Shell, you're coming back and forth, and then Joseph was sometime in there, right?
Yeah, Joseph was in there in August.
And who's Joseph?
August was, Anna had a miscarriage in Ruston. Joseph was way, way, way preemie in August of 75.
August 11th, right?
18.
18th, yeah.
18. But anyway, Anna should have gone another 3 or 4 months. I think he weighed 600 grams, which is a little less than a pound. They kept him alive about 12 hours or something like that. And they probably could have kept him alive today. There've been a lot that have been born down in that weight range now and survived. It's still unusual, but it's where he was, there was no way. I don't think they've ever done that. In fact, he probably lived as long as any at that weight had ever lived, for that matter. But anyway, we lost him. And let's see. And then, so I worked that Michigan project. That was pretty much the only thing I worked while I was in Houston. But that kept me real busy. I'm sure I did some other stuff, but I can't remember what it was, to be honest with you. And then they moved us in July of the next year. So it was been a little longer than a year I was in Houston. We moved to Indianapolis. That's where you were born and John was born. We were there from 76 to 79. And that was a fun job because it was troubleshooting. There was a whole bunch of it was, what's wrong, go fix it. Or, this could be better, go make it better, whatever. And work with a lot of good field people. That was one thing I liked about Shelf Pipe. I was working for people who were getting things done. I wasn't necessarily getting anything done with the insurance headquarters, and I was there to support them, and I liked that. And, but anyway, we worked that. Spent a lot of time fixing the stuff I put in Michigan. That was weird with that system, because I spent almost a year in Houston building the western side of it. There was a whole eastern side too. But I built the western side and got it operational. About probably 50 to 60, 75 wells, our central production facility, probably 4 or 5 times, maybe 10 times that wells, pulling oil off of that basin. And but anyway, most everything we put in, when I put it in Houston, based on the drawings that I was told to use because I didn't know any better and I couldn't argue with anyhow, none of that stuff worked. We'd tear it all out.
Oh, wow.
And we got through, there was one line into the pump and one line out, and that was it. All the bypass lines and relief lines and instrumentation lines and blowback lines and all that stuff they got in West Texas, sent that back to West Texas. All we did was shake it off and make oils on the ground. But we got through. It was slick. I mean, it was just pure, put it in there and take it out. It wasn't anything fancy, but it worked. And it didn't spill oil all over the place. So I tore out a lot of what we put in the year or two after I got to Indianapolis. And we got the system working right. We made a lot of oil there, a lot more than they thought we were going to. Good oil, too. Real good lube-proof oil. You could stack it up on the ground on a cold day. I mean, you load it with a front-end loader. We had a 2,500 barrel spill we picked up with front-end loaders and dump trucks. It was in the middle of the winter. It was that waxy. But anyway, we did that. Worked a lot on cap line, which is the biggest line we had was a 40-inch. And they had each of the stations had one 2,500 horse and three 3,000 horse. No, take that back. One 3,000 horse engine and three 5,000 horse, not engines, motors. But that was 18,000 horsepower per station, and I think we had 16 stations. We could move 1 million to 4 barrels a day. But anyway, I got to work on that. That's some big stuff. and we solved some pretty significant problems with those things. That was fun. A lot of troubleshooting. Some of it was just so dumb. I mean, we got so technical with some of that junk with specialists coming in and doing all these fancy measurements and all this other kind of crazy stuff. You know, well, this ain't just right, and this isn't just right. Solution to that particular problem that we spent months and months playing with and measuring and doing all kind of stuff with. Take that stupid bearing out of there. It's not supposed to be in there anyway. Those were put in there for when we were running these kind of flow rates. Put the old bearing back in there and it'll run just fine. Done. I mean, all that work, and it was done that quick. But we didn't know it. It's some lack of knowledge, because that particular pump, they were using a bearing out of a boat. I mean, and I'm thinking tugboat.
Yeah.
The bearings in those things are massive, because it's all that water pushing on that bearing, and they're massive. Well, they put a bearing of that type in that pump because it was so unbalanced at certain flow rates that it would just eat those other bearings up. So they quit running those flow rates. Well, this bearing's under no load at all. I mean, we measured it. It wasn't, how could it be busting out? It's not even moving. I mean, it's not under any kind of stress. It was bouncing back and forth, 500 pounds. But that was wiping the bandit. Because it's just enough to just beat it off of there just a little at a time. And then once it started, it was gone. But we got rid of it. No problem. There was stuff like that. And the other things where we actually did some good because of what we meant to do. But,
so did
and
you
then
mom
you,
get along better then?
I don't know. I'm not sure what get along better.
You said you had a really rough first couple of years. I wondered if it got better.
Yeah, I guess it got, better. I mean, we were doing well financially, although we never did spend any different, never had. We went out and buy cars and all that kind of stuff. We did buy a car from Pawpaw in '76 after I started with Shell. And
That was the Cutlass.
that was the Cutlass. We needed another car, though. I mean, it was just that simple. That Bobby brought that car to us in Memphis, I believe it was. He drove it that far north.
How do you get home?
Somebody followed him or
Oh,
something
like,
like
sure,
that.
you're not gonna have a
And
plane.
we had to do something similar on our end. But, I figured how that deal worked, but we did it. Let me just put it that way, leave it at that. But that was a good old car. Like I blew that sucker up one night. That was when we were in Indianapolis. We were coming back. And y'all were you were just a baby there at the end. John was born, but just barely when we left.
2 weeks.
Yeah. But Jeannie used to take care of you all the time there. And there was another lady, Granny. And they took care of you.
How did you find Granny?
Your mother found her somehow. I'm not certain how. It was probably through Ben Franklin where she worked. Somehow. I couldn't tell you. But they had good friendship. There were some good people. The Shell people were real nice. We did a lot of parties and outings and things of that nature. So we had plenty to do. And I got okay.
So what was it like to have me around? Was it freaky when Mom was pregnant? Was it Joseph?
No, there was none of that. No, you just showed up. We just started enjoying it. I didn't see nothing different. I had a toy.
You weren't there, were you?
I was not there as much as I'd like, but I was there quite a bit. I mean,
when I was born.
Oh, when you were born? No, I was in Michigan up there. Al Havey plugged that stupid NGL on. I can't believe he did that, but he's just young and dumb as the rest of us. But anyway, yeah, that's where I was. Yeah, they called me in the office there with Cowcats. They were kind of snickering or whatever. I don't know what was going on. Said, you need to call your wife right now. Walker flew chartered a plane to fly me back on. They had chartered a plane to fly up there because they needed a welder. But he chartered a plane to get me back home with my wife after she had the baby. Then she chewed my butt up one side and
I
down
was
the
early
other.
though.
Huh?
I was early.
Yeah, you were a little early, not that much.
3
though.
weeks.
Yeah, wasn't so much I was worried about you.
No, I mean, you didn't
Coming
expect
early.
me to be born while you were gone.
Yeah.
So what do you think about being a dad?
It's where I am, what you do. You don't sit there and consider it, you just do the job. At least I never went that route, should I be here or not? No, you're here, dude.
I bet was it cool if you enjoy it.
Did I enjoy it? Darn right I enjoyed it. You guys have always been fun.
You had John about almost like a little shy of 2 years after me.
Yeah. Got him there, and I was already, let's see, before I left to go to Houston, but I was already getting chewed up for not being there already. When I did leave, but I didn't leave until he was born. That ticked that guy down, Gene Sherwood off.
He wasn't a very nice guy.
At times he wasn't, and other times he was okay. So Gene was different. I guess we all are. But at that point in time, he was not fun. And made things fun. I ended up in the hospital when I went down that first
Why?
few days. Some kind of ulcer or something. You'd have to ask your mother. She'd know better than I would. I ended up in the hospital for a few hours a month. It had to do with stress, because I was under a lot of stress with what was going on. Ed and John comes along, and I miss that one because I'm in the parking lot. Only thing your mother's ever done in her life that's been fast.
So John was born and you took off to Houston and then we went 2 weeks later?
Yeah. And when y'all came down, or I don't even know what route he took, but John ended up with Ben for a bunch of that time. I think your mother had you and John was with Ben for 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. You'd have to ask your mother
He
again.
was so young. Huh.
Yeah. He was just nothing. Just no baby. But anyway, when we got down there, let's see, what was I doing at
You
that
moved to
point?
Kingwood.
Yeah, that was the one where we went down to check out the housing. I guess your mother would have been pregnant. I hadn't thought about that. But anyway, we went down to check the housing. I was going to work out of Pasadena, so I said, I want some on the southeast side. And we went down there and looked at Friendswood and a bunch of that stuff down there off of 45. Second day, you couldn't get to anything we looked at the first day. You could not drive there.
Why?
Underwater. All of it. Everything was underwater. It had rained 21 inches in 24 hours. And everything we wanted to look at was underwater the second day we got there. So we moved north around 10. There was some construction going on there. And I didn't like what I saw. And we kept going north. We ended up in Kingwood. And way away from where I was going to work, but I didn't care. I was going to have a company car anyway, so that helped. That was a nice place to live.
I didn't know you had a company car when you lived in Kingwood. I mean, the first
Not
time.
all of the time, but yeah. The first time I did. Well, let's see.
You had a
John,
tourist the second time.
let's take that back. I had a car as district engineer when I first got there. I was working out of Pasadena. I worked that for about 6 months.
You went to Thibodeaux.
And no, that was too early. Or that would have been 79. No, that was too early. Let's see, let me get this straight. District engineer. Then I went back downtown. Because that would have been 79, that would have been 80. It wasn't until 83 that I ended up with Thibodeaux.
Yeah, because I was 4. No,
So
it couldn't
I
have been.
think, let's see, I would have been working, I know what I would do, project coordination possibly. Yeah, I think that's right.
I was
Yes,
four
that would have
in
been project coordination, because we had a lot of new projects, connections going on, and a lot of new business wanting to do, and that kind of thing. And I went into a group, the guy that had hired me was heading the group at the time, Jim Rosser, and I went into that group. I stayed with him for 2 or 3 years doing projects, pull them out of the air with Exxon and Chevron, everybody else, where they needed product and we could get it to them, cutting deals. That was a lot of fun. That was when I got into genealogy work, because I had a lot of downtime there. I was basically bringing the engineering folks and the operations folks together to make something happen in the way of a new project or rebuilding something or whatever. That was a lot of fun. Millions and millions of dollars. God, that money was big. But, yeah, whatever, it's fun. And then let's see, in 83, they decided to give me another shot as district engineer.
Are you sure about that date, Dad? Because I was 4 when we lived in Thibodeaux. And that would have been 81. Or 82 at the latest.
Well, your grandfather died in 83, and we were in Thibodeaux, or just back from Thibodeaux in 83.
Must have been the beginning of 83.
January-ish, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I turned 6 in 83.
But anyway, during that time, I ended up in St. James,
What's that?
working the first line on cap line, last line on ship show. A bunch of systems came together. It was on the Mississippi River. We lived in Thibodeaux at a mobile home park, and a mobile home with the old man and his wife behind their house.
Bubba.
Huh?
The kid's name was Bubba.
I don't remember that.
Bajron.
Yeah, Bajeron, the Bajeron. But anyway, we moved over there. I remember it being 83, maybe 82, probably 82. And I worked there for Floyd Griffith for about 6 months or so. And they were fixing to send me back to Houston in the temporary transfer. And Floyd had a heart attack. About the time we were moving stuff back, I think already. And that was the time I did all that work offshore, did a lot of flying back and forth on helicopters out of Gibson.
Oh, I didn't know.
Because we did a whole bunch of boat work and plug lines and putting in clamps and doing a bunch of stuff, fixing big traps. And it's all, you name it, we did it out there. Jim Prince was out there at the time. And anyway, I was already headed back to Houston, was packed and was actually moving stuff, and I got called and said Floyd had a heart attack. We need somebody to cover for him until he can get back on the job, or we can get somebody else in the job permanent. I said, fine. So I turned around and went back for another.
You stayed there for 9 months, so it was
Yeah,
3
another
months?
3 or 4 months. And that was when the stuff hit the fan, where those guys were stealing, and Jimmy and I came in on it, and it got the ball rolling, and a whole bunch of people lost their jobs, and I got out of there before all the crap hit the fan. But some of what Jimmy and I did got it started, because we caught a technician stealing or getting kickbacks from a seal remanufacturing outfit. Anyway, but that was good. Let's see, y'all were, starting school, early
Started
in
kindergarten
school.
there.
Trying to think what else we did while we were there. While we were we're not in Michigan yet, but I don't know. Didn't do a whole lot of run around other than the relatives that I can remember back in those days.
I remember
there
John
wasn't
and
a
I-
lot of extra time to do anything.
I remember John and I being shocked at how quickly we could get to Momos. Because it was in Thibodeaux instead of
Oh yeah.
being a long ways away, we didn't know.
Yeah. That was, at that time it's almost a blur. Of course, your grandfather died, Robert, and this kind of was. When we went back to Houston, it wasn't too much longer after I got back to Houston, a year or so, maybe less. They said, get your butt up to Michigan. So, y'all, we're in elementary school.
Do you remember how
John
you-
was probably in kindergarten, and you maybe in first or second.
He wasn't then. Do you remember how you got him to not make me repeat kindergarten?
No, I don't remember that.
I only knew 13 letters of the alphabet when we moved to Michigan because I had gone to school in Thibodeaux, and in kindergarten in Thibodeaux was just to make the kids get along. They were going to hold me back, and Mom said he went up to the school and said no, that she would be fine. And I didn't. I went to first grade.
Yeah.
John started school the year after that.
I don't remember that, but
You
your
saved me
mom-
from graduating school a year later.
Yeah.
There was Hurricane Alicia was in there.
Yeah,
That was in what, 1983?
it's about right. Yeah.
I remember you holding me up so that I could see Mom getting very upset about it.
She can-
Aaron, we had lots of visits. Aaron would come and stay with us.
Yeah,
Uncle Bob came and stayed with us. Momo came and stayed with us.
we had a lot of company.
We did. We had a lot. Y'all had a lot of friends there too.
Yeah.
Conroe and Porter or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Porter maybe.
I know what you're talking about. But, yeah, it was a good enough time. Michigan was fun though.
That was in 1980.
84 when we went up there. Yeah, I remember driving up, changed the time zones and crossed time zones the same day. So it was something like a 3 or 4 hour mismatch on that day. It was really weird. But I couldn't get away from Michigan. I mean, I built a bunch of it. I went and fixed a bunch of it, and then they sent me back and said, okay, now make it work.
Cal Custer?
Yeah, that was where the office was.
How far of a drive was that from Traverse?
20 to 25 miles.
Why Traverse City?
Why Traverse? Because it was a city. Cowcasset was a community of adulterers.
Oh, nice.
At least that's the reputation it had across the company. Peyton Place, there were a lot of, well, if you don't order any more, I'll take her. But, yeah, they had some interesting going on. We enjoyed that, though. I was just such a kid. And I don't know, it's something when you're that young and they put you in a position like that, it can get interesting. But they didn't kill me, so I guess that's, something. And I got to where I knew that business so inside and out, it wasn't funny. And that was when computers took over, and I used the dickens out of ours. Nobody else come anywhere close for 10 years, at least. Because I just kept building stuff. And the guys I was working with were good, at seeing. But we saw, and it's kind of amazing when you look back during that growth period where the personal computer, as called, comes into play. Man, when you realize what the suckers could do, there was just so much that was, there's no thinking to this. You just do it. I mean, you couldn't before, you can now. You need the information. It wasn't rocket science. Some of the simple stuff I put together, it's a godsend. So, yeah, if you say so, it works. And yeah, you probably can use it, and the next thing you know, the government requires it. It was a lot of fun. I'd bang away with those things in the middle of the night there at the house, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, go to work. There wasn't anything every once in a while spend 24 hours at work. It made sense. I took y'all on a lot of those trips too, though. We did a bunch of run around out in the field. I was thinking about that last time we were thinking about
We took a
Michigan.
lot of field trips with you.
Yeah.
We were, remember, pigs.
And those mornings, I guess it was pretty exclusive. Saturday morning, let's go to breakfast. That was always a lot of fun. The park was a lot of fun. John riding that crazy three-wheeler. Kept waiting for him to kill himself on a tree. He had fun. The swimming pool was there, skiing. There were just so many good things. A bunch of those old folks were kind of cool.
We did a lot of visiting.
Yeah. I got involved with a bunch of cheerleading. We got a lot of junk going. But I was playing treasurer,
That's cheerleading.
building chairman, and deacon, and all that stuff. And working 60, 70 hours a week. I don't know how in the world I did all this stuff. Didn't make any sense looking back. But I guess it paid off. We got out of there. It's a good 4 years though. I look back at my career, the one thing I can think of and claim more than any other as an accomplishment is Elmer Procron.
Tell me about it.
Oh, Elmer, when I was there, was driving the Thibodeaux truck. He'd been driving it for years as a meter measurement technician. He had 3 of them. One of them, Al Brown, checked master meters, or master meter a bunch of Shell Oil stuff for a fee. Lee Cottrell worked on meters, you know, when they broke and filled into the other 2 when they needed it. Elmer ran the Thibodeaux truck. Of course, the meters are your cash register. I mean, you mess that up, you're losing a lot of money, you're costing, you know, it's just, they got to be done right. Well, Elmer, with his little 80,000-pound Thibodeaux truck, would get wound up on Valium and booze and prove for 2 or 3 days at a time without sleep. Driving that 80,000-pound truck all over Kalkaska and Otsego and the counties up there. Hundreds and hundreds, thousands of miles in all kinds of weather. And, everybody knew he was drinking and he was doing, legal drugs, whatever. But Elmer was always, that was just Elmer. Well, I got up there. I ain't been up there any time at all. And, I kind of knew it already, but I got it confirmed pretty quick. And somebody told me one evening, says, this truck's parked right down there at the Sportsman, right out front. And that's nothing but a bar. It may not be much, but I don't think I can risk somebody driving an 80,000-pound truck coming out of a bar. And I called a measurement, or meter tech. I'm getting it wrong again. Mechanical tech, Ira Butler. Called him, says, Ira, meet me at the Sportsman in about 10, 15 minutes. I need you to take somebody home. And I drove up there and walked in. He's sitting at the bar with a drink. I said, give me the keys, Elmer. And he said, what? I said, give me the keys to the truck. You're not going to sit here and drink that and drive at home. It's not going to happen. Not now, not ever. And he didn't put up a big fuss or anything, but he didn't get up either. He gave me his keys and I walked out and I said, Ira's coming, he'll give you a ride home. And I went cutting that 80,000-pound truck and drove it to 2.5 miles back to the shop, shivering the whole way. I mean, that was one big truck, man. That's like driving
Semi?
No. Well, it's equivalent. It's 80,000 pounds.
Yeah, that's huge.
But it's like a fire truck because it's all, small. Not pipe, no big pipe. I got it back. Ira picked me up. Elmer, within 2 years, was dry and drug-free. He did it himself, but he never drove that truck again. Not once. And he wanted his truck back many times. He didn't come to me to ask. 'Cause I'd already made it clear that was never going to happen. Anyway, there were some good folks up there. We enjoyed it. And Elmer and I talk about it every 6 months now. If he don't call me, I'll call him. 80-something years old. I mean, he still rides that Harley like it's nothing. When I went up there to visit a couple of years ago, a truck pulled out in front of him and his girlfriend with him on the bike. And he slid the bike to a stop. But he kept it up and with her on it, and truck drove right in front of his front wheel, missed him. But he's still alert. Anyway, we had a lot of fun as a family up there. I mean, I was extremely busy, but we found a lot of time to do a lot of different stuff. Sledding and skiing. And we did a little traveling out there, too. I remember going down to Detroit, seems like.
Greenwich Village.
Yeah, that was fun. At Menlo Park, or whatever, where Thomas Edison was. Yeah, that was good. That's it, still running? I have no idea. I can't read the numbers the way it's facing, but I bet it's working.
Yep.
Anyway, let's see, what else?
So you went from Michigan back to Kingwood in 1988.
Yeah, that kind of happened. I had about done what I could do with Michigan in terms of some things. One of the things that I did that was amazing in Michigan was I proved to them that our loss was in fact a gain.
How so?
Michigan, since it had been built, had been an acknowledged loss unit. In the oil business, common carriers, you ship 100 barrels of oil, or let's be more realistic. You ship 1,000 barrels of oil. You ship 1,000 barrels of oil, you're obligated to deliver 998. It's a 2% loss allowance, which says if you lose due to metering, this is your compensation. You can't claim it unless you keep it. And that's kept the industry pretty honest. But Shell Pipe has always been so focused and attuned to measurement, the cash register, that we've made millions and millions of dollars off of that $2 every 1,000 barrels, or 2 barrels every 1,000. But not in Michigan. Always lost. Nothing they could do could get it where it belonged. Well, I discovered once I got up there that this crude doesn't behave like any other crude or the standard crude that the American Petroleum Institute uses as a standard. So, well, that's not fair. Just because our crude doesn't match and everybody else's is a lot closer. But, be that as it may, they were going to change their standard for our crude. But by the time I got through looking at the situation and our situation in the physical world, they realized if we weren't gaining, we would be losing. Because we were definitely in the good, even though there was a slight loss on the books. Could have been a whole lot worse. And that got them off my back and everybody else's back, kind of settled down for the rest of the system's life. It's just a fact of life. Nothing you can do about it. You do the best you can to live with it. Try and run a game, or keep your game. Anyway, that was cool. Did a bunch of stuff, like I said, with the computers. But I came down because I got tired of these auditors coming up and chewing on us for different things that we needed to fix, which I didn't have a problem with that at all. I just wanted it done nicely, which I got accused of not doing later in my career, but that's another story. Anyway, particularly though, the guy that wrote up the HS&E health, safety, and environmental audit, I didn't understand half of what he had to say. He's a nice guy. I mean, I didn't have anything wrong with him, but there wasn't any clarity to what they wanted. Yeah, there's a law, and this is what we do, and yeah, there's a gap, but what do we need to do to close the gap? Couldn't tell, because I wasn't sure what he was saying. And their cure for that was to move me down to Houston to do that job. So you don't like it, go fix it. And that's almost exactly what they told me. But I took some of what I'd done in Michigan and brought it with me, the computer-related stuff, and brought it with me and basically institutionalized it across the country. Didn't intend to, but it just happened because it worked, and it worked well. But I had a lot of fun in that group. That was 88 through 91 or so, I think, before I went out to Pasadena. But we got into a big deal with risk assessments on pipelines. And I got charged with come up with a risk prevention program. And that was all the direction I got. And no support other than the boss said, you need something, you tell me what you need, but get it done. And I came up with the coolest plan with a bunch of concrete steps and meetings in certain environments, doing certain things, focusing on just this, nothing else, running like the military kind of stuff. Make sure you cover all these things on checklists, just all kinds of difference. And there were other parts of it. And I got that going. Did the first year's worth of it. I mean, travel. It was 2 or 3 different cities every week. Usually just 2, but it was at least 2 for months and months. I didn't know whether I was on a bus or I was on an airplane. It was a lot of fun. Writing meeting notes up. We used to use something called the PROS system for email, which was almost not teletype, but it's in that direction definitely. But gosh, these notes I would come out after these meetings would be 30 pages long because we covered that much territory. And I'd have them all organized, all the action items captured, all this other, and I'd do it overnight and have it the next morning when they were ready to leave, so I could go through it and say, okay, what did we miss? What did I miss? And it was fun again, but it was one whole bunch of work. That was my only claim to fame, is I did do the George R. Brown Convention Center one meeting.
It's cool. That's huge.
Well, there was several hundred people there, but it was nice. We had results because what we did within just almost overnight, there were things that we caught. We spent a ton of money, millions and millions of dollars, but we fixed some things real fast. And it made a lot of difference. It was a lot of fun. But that was, let's see, that would have been through about 91. Then I ended up out at Pasadena again as district. Started off district superintendent, which was kind of equivalent to what I was in Michigan, but a much larger group of people, about 70. They turned that into a district manager position, I think, next. And then they went to areas and increased the size, and I ended up finishing up as a an area manager. And there were about 6 areas across Shell Pipe. That's as high as I ever got. And I take that back. Maybe it was on the same level when I picked up that group. But I did that job for about 3 years. It's kind of cool because I had all these jobs right here in Houston. Never moved from 88 all the way forward. I had 3 or 4 different jobs. But that one was a lot of that was people and cutting people and asking them to leave and giving them packages and big oil leaks and spills, and it was funny. I had a bigger office than I think the president of Shell Pipe did, because we had the 12th floor of the Pasadena Bank 1 building. I had a magnet on my door. I could even close it as well as open. Had a balcony up on the top. None of the foremen liked me because we always had to have our meetings in the middle, in the outdoors during that time. Because it wouldn't let me smoke inside, so we'd be out there 85 degrees, or no, more like 95 degrees in the middle of August doing a performance discussion with Larry, who doesn't smoke and doesn't want to be out there in the heat, no trees around. I was smoking away. They made me a picnic table. I got it back at the house, a little bitty sucker. All their hate mail on it. No, they signed it, but they hated that table. But anyway, that was kind of fun. That was too political. Things got really political back then. Not as bad as they did get, but yeah, that got interesting. Y'all were in high school. You were doing everything under the sun. I don't even know what you did anymore, and I don't want to know. I know I went through it. Some doctor with a G's name in it. What was his name? McReynolds, yeah. Anyway, whatever. I know I did. You must have made a lot more out of things than you should have been, in my opinion. But whatever. We did okay, finally. Got through it, didn't kill each other. I don't think. Anywho, let's see. So yeah, I had that thing. And that one used to go all the way from McCamey to the other side of Lake Charles and up to Kilgore. Where else? That was about it. And then they stuck me in Jim Gallagher's job in about 93, 4, 5-ish, somewhere in there. Basically kicked him out of his job over a legal issue because they wanted something that he had rights to from a patent perspective that they had signed off on and reneged. And I was asked to take his place. And he was still there.
Did you have to let him go?
Huh? No, I didn't. They put him in a parallel group, still had his technical responsibilities for measurement, but not the group. I had the group, and I was told, do nothing technical. We know you're technically inclined. Leave it alone and manage the people because it's a mess. And that was putting it very mildly. I love Jimmy to death, but it was a mess.
He wasn't a manager?
Huh?
He wasn't a manager or what?
No. He's extremely talented technically. He's a good thinker. He's got a good head on his shoulder, but it's just mannerisms. And Jimmy just couldn't bring people together, especially with conflict. He doesn't like conflict. Me, I thrive on it. Yeah, it was an interesting job. It was easy fix. I just would turn them all on me. Once they all got after me, they left each other alone, basically. But I was hacked at them from day one because I was from operations. They're supposed to be serving operations. They're going out to everybody in the field telling them what to do. And I said, that's got to stop. I said, they're paying our salaries. You can't do that. I don't care how right you are. That's got nothing to do with it. And so we fought for 3 years around the idea of the customer's always right. They never bought it, and I never sold it. But I tried. We did a lot of good work together. But it got so political. And then they dumped the Texaco shell together there at the end of the 90s. And the day they announced that, within a few days, I went to my boss and I said, I want out of supervision, management, whatever you want to call it. I said, I will not be a party to what's fixing to happen. He says, y'all can do it to me, but I'm not doing it to anybody else. And then I got out of that, and then I just wasted my time for the rest of my career.
How long was that?
Almost 10 years, 8-10 years. Because I played around the technical. I did some good things. I mean, we had a line that got all screwed up by the Texaco group, and we had to clean it, and they lost $21 million on that line the first 6 months, just with bad product. Like, delivering bad jet fuel to the military, flying B-1s out at, I don't think so. You know, you just don't do that. But they did, and anyway, we got it fixed. That was kind of fun. But it was just like moving around in molasses. Didn't know who to trust, what to do, where to go, when to show up for what. Just, it was nuts. And then I did get some focus around one thing that to kind of bring the Shell and Texaco people together. But I got no support from management. After I got done with it, I probably spent my time and other people's time in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $1 million putting something together that never got used. Just wasted. Still useful today if they use it, but they're not good. But I got out of it when I needed to. It was really, God's been every step we've taken. We have been at the right place at the right time. No misstep yet in all those years.
So what year did you leave Shell?
2004, March. Actually, February. I missed my 30-year or 29-year anniversary by 10 days. And that saved the company a bunch of money on insurance. But it was good. I mean, I knew my work wasn't bearing any fruit. Didn't matter whether it was good or not. That was beside the point. At that point, I had also been accused of selling bad product, if you will, engineering outfit that John Niemeyer, my boss, who had retired about 6 months ahead of me, he got us in leagues with an engineering outfit called Energy Engineering Incorporated. And they were nothing but purebred scoundrels who didn't know diddly about what they were doing. And he pushed them all over our company and put me at the front of it. And every time I would mention those guys and the work that our field people were buying from them, I would tell them, dude, don't go there. I don't care what he said. I don't care what you may have heard me say. Quit wasting your money. Do it yourself. Or if you're going to work with them, these are all the hundreds of things you're going to have to look out for because they're not going to do it right. But that didn't matter to Shell when I left. They didn't care to hear all that stuff. I had it all documented too. Didn't mean anything. But it's okay. I had a good 25 years out of 29. That's not bad. And even those last ones, they weren't fun necessarily, but I made some pretty good money. A few things knocked away. And y'all did good. I don't know what. We made a mess of y'all's college. But I don't know. I look back, I'm not even sure. How in the world did we pay for that or not pay for that or whatever happened? Because I sure can't figure it out. But it happened. I know y'all did a lot of it on your own. And all we did was kind of back you. At least that's the way it appears to me. What you think?
I don't know what John's story was.
Uh-huh.
I went to school in 95 for one semester and quit. think it cost you about $3,000.
Yeah, it was nothing. It
But
was on a credit card.
I didn't go back to school until 2001, and the government picked up the bill and you paid books.
Yeah.
Then when I
okay.
moved to Austin, after I finished the associates, you paid my rent. It was $450 a month for about a year and a half,
Okay.
and then I was done.
Yeah. I don't remember anything traumatic or whatever about it. We just did what we did. And
No, you paid off 10 grand of the debt that I incurred to finish the bachelor's with the truck.
yeah, right.
So you got out of there about right around 20 grand. I don't know what John
That's
cost you.
dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, John didn't cost much either. I mean, we ran up a little on the credit card. Anna was all hacked off of me about the credit card, but I got a better rate there than I could anywhere else at the time.
I'm sure you did.
And I had lots of incentive to pay it off as fast as I could. And it worked. Yeah.
What'd you do
Anyway.
after you left Shell?
Let's see, left shell. Well, for a year, almost a year and a half, we lived off of my severance pay, which was a year and a half's worth of pay. We just lived off of that. I worked at the mission 3 days a week.
That was volunteer though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all volunteer. I mean, I immediately went from an office in 2 Shell Plaza to sweeping out the back storeroom of the food pantry there in the Northeast. That struck me as weird. I can remember one day just, I don't know where this happened. And then thinking, oh, ain't bad. But anyway, that was fun, and we were doing a bunch of work at St. Martha's, and I got more involved with some of the stuff there at Kingwood First Baptist, and I stayed busy. I haven't, the whole time I've been done with Shell, I've stayed busy. I don't know, I've always got stuff to do.
How'd you end up at Kingwood College?
Kingwood College, that's a good question. Anna, had gone some courses there and that kind of thing. And, I don't know, I can't remember who exactly I got a line on, but it just made